to another episode of Accessibility. It's a show on YouTube where I talk about the video game industry, accessibility, and representation. Basically, how can we help more people to play games, and more people to see themselves in the games they play? When it comes to finding ways to convey stories from one to another, humanity is really good at finding creative methods of storytelling. Be that verbally telling a story to another person, or recording that verbal storytelling, to big high-end productions such as video games and movies. There's a lot of different ways of telling stories, but I think a lot of people consider the purest form of storytelling to be writing the written word down, to be making a book. For many people, books offer a storytelling medium that empowers imagination. If you are someone who is a very imaginative person, then the fact that books by their very nature can't contain every single detail of a world leaves room for you to fill in the blanks, and for many people that's a wonderful aspect of the medium for storytelling. However, for many people, books might not be the most accessible way to digest a narrative. There are definitely certain disabilities and conditions which will mean that someone who might be perfectly capable of reading might struggle to read large blocks of text in one go without any other kind of sensory input. So today, on Accessibility, we're going to be talking about visual novel video games and how they compare in terms of accessibility to books. We're going to be talking about some of the groups of disabled players who find visual novels easier to engage with, and some of the areas where they do have drawbacks and may be more difficult than books for some disabled players to engage with. Let's start by getting a few areas of accessibility out of the way, which are not exclusive to this discussion. While physical books feature limited font sizes, preset languages, and default fonts, many digital ebook readers support changing fonts to be more accessible alternatives that may alleviate dyslexia, increasing font size for partially sighted users, and automatic translation of text for those who may not share a language with the text. While these benefits also extend to visual novels, they're not going to be the focus of this video. We're going to talk about things that are specific to visual novels. With that out of the way, let's talk about some of the groups of disabled readers who may benefit from visual novel storytelling methods over those of traditional books. As a gamer with aphantasia, a condition where I lack a visual imagination and visual memory, I really struggle to engage with purely written fiction. I can read, I can internalise, and I can enjoy the words, but the experience of a vivid description in a book allowing me to imagine the scene visually has never applied to me. I struggle to visualise where people are relative to each other in a scene, or the overall tone of a room, in a way that can at times make following written fiction difficult for me. Visual novels may not be as visual a storytelling medium as movies, for example, but their presentation of backgrounds, scenery, character art portraits, and changed facial expressions for characters allow me a sense of scene and setting that I often struggle to get from traditional books. That small amount of visual information helps me to get and stay engaged with the narrative, by showing me information other people can imagine for themselves when reading. For many readers who struggle with focusing on a single topic, such as people with ADHD, reading big walls of text can be difficult. In a book, you have paragraph breaks to try and break the book up into chunks, but a given paragraph is often itself a big block of text, with other big blocks of text around it, on a couple of pages which are just full of big blocks of text. And keeping focused on reading through that can be difficult. Many book readers with ADHD have to use methods such as reading with a ruler underlining the current line of text, or following their current word with their finger, and even then may still struggle not to lose focus and mentally tune out. The experience of reading a book, zoning out, realising you've not processed any information from the last few pages, and needing to go back and reread a big chunk of text is very common for readers like myself with ADHD. Visual novels typically help alleviate some of these issues. Their text is delivered at most 1 or 2 lines of text at a time, with moving on to the next bit of text completely in the hands of the player. There's no distracting additional text beyond the current text you're meant to be reading, just a couple of lines you're currently on, which can make it easier to isolate and mentally process words without mindlessly skimming through. The addition of audio and visual elements in the form of a soundtrack and images to illustrate what's happening can keep an ADHD brain that is seeking multiple sources of input to not get distracted. Engaging with a story without as much urge to multitask because there are multiple things to focus on within the presentation of the story. However, Visual novels are not an automatically better way for disabled players to engage with storytelling than books, as they come with a few drawbacks of their own. Perhaps most notably, breaking up text into much smaller chunks can cause problems for players with chronic pain conditions or those who struggle with repeated button presses. Visual novels rely on the player pressing the same single button a great many times, essentially requiring a button press for each sentence in a narrative. This necessitates a lot more button presses than a book would require page turns, and this can cause issues for some disabled players. Many visual novels offer an option to automatically move through text boxes without button presses, which can fix this issue if your reading speed matches the automated scrolling speed of the game's text. Many visual novels lack a setting to alter the speed of this automated text progression, which can limit the usefulness of the setting. I'd love to see text progression speed sliders become more common as a visual novel accessibility feature. While they may not be useful for everyone, if you're someone who struggles with visual imagination or focusing on big uninterrupted chunks of just text, visual novels can be a really good gateway into reading more. I see a lot of people who downplay the value of visual novels as a storytelling medium. I think that's largely because the medium has become somewhat synonymous with cheesy dating sims as the primary kind of stories they tell. But that's a real shame, because there is a lot of undervalued potential in visual novels as a way to tell stories that could be more accessible to a wider range of people. Someone who plays a visual novel has read a story. There is no inherent less value to that than someone who has read a book that had no images and no audio. Just because it's a day thing is what people think of when they think of that medium, doesn't mean that someone who has played through a visual novel hasn't read a story, and that in any way that's less valid, and we need to get over this weird stigma that that's less of a valid way to read a story. I really hope we see, in the future, visual novels taken more seriously as a medium, because a few little tweaks, a little bit of art, a little bit of music, can make it much more accessible for someone with a disability to read a full-length story.